Hello everybody, it's Glass Half Dead here, and with me today I have somebody that you may recall as the master of the Kill Team world. It's Michael.
Boy, master of the Kill Team world. That's a hell of a lead
Well,
in.
a lot of people are saying that you are the best Kill Team player.
We'll
Have you
see.
heard this?
After
Have you
Nova,
heard this?
we may have some different ideas after Nova.
Well, we will see, we will see. But it's awesome to have you back on. Obviously, the person that kind of brought Eldari into the mainstream eye, because before you, people thought they were trash tier, genuinely bottom of the pack, and then you base. I I keep thinking you won, you didn't. You came second, because obviously Miguel with his Tyranids won, but you
Right.
did an amazing job with an underpowered faction. Since we last spoke, Elites has come out, and we had a very low, quiet time on the Kill Team scene. But we are about to launch back into competitive Kill Team season, it seems, as we've got Nova coming up, then we've got the SoCal Open, and then we also get LVO later, don't we? Yeah.
Well, not till February, so there will be a
Oh, okay.
gap, but you know,
It's close enough for me. We can have you back on
sure,
afterwards, after SoCal. It's fine. Um,
perhaps.
so we'd like to discuss today a little bit about your thoughts now with Eldari, as I assume they are still the faction you're playing. Uh, how they are after Elites. I think we all know there's been a lot of talk about Eldari after Elites, but obviously having the man himself on to discuss them would be great. But
Sure.
also to talk about competitive Kill Team in general, the state of it, our thoughts on it, and when I say our thoughts, I mean yours, because people I probably have done a video just before this where I've waffled on about my thoughts about it. So let's hear yours. Where would you like to
Fair
start,
enough.
Mike?
Well, when I went to LVO, I was playing in the big tournament, and the Kill Team was at that time a little bit of an afterthought for me. And then I got back from it. I talked, of course, to Glass Half Dead. And the other thing I did was I went on to BCP to look for rankings because I was curious if I'd made it into like the top 5,000 of Big Warhammer. That was the reason I went there. I just wanted to see if like my one tournament had some resonance in this world. And what I found instead was that they had Kill Team rankings up. And that got me intrigued. And so now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why they had Kill Team rankings up and how those work. And then after that, I will talk about a second ranking system that has since been developed, which will
Do you need
probably
me here
ultimately.
for this, or shall I come back in like half an hour?
It
No, keep
depends
going,
on if
keep
you
going.
want to ask insightful questions in the midst of it.
No, no, no. I'm
Um,
genuinely curious about what you've got to say.
sure.
That sounded really
So,
sarcastic. It wasn't. Go.
that's your thing. So the BCP app, that's Best Coast Pairings. It is an app that helps you run a tournament, basically. And it turns out that they auto compile statistics from the tournaments that you run on the app. And from that, they generate on their own a ranking system. And the rankings for Kill Team on BCP, which you can find probably on the app, but I find it easiest to find on the website because I use an old-fashioned computer. It's just in the upper. As soon as you go to the front page, it's in the upper right. Just says rankings, and you go there, you click on Kill Team, and you will see. And basically, what it does is it does not show every event you've been at. It shows your top 4 events. And at the moment, it seems to be showing your top 4 events all time. It's also possible that it's showing your top 4 events of the trailing 12 months, because at the moment, those two things are the same. We only have 12 months of Kill Team history since last year at Nova, which was the first BCP tournament. So if you go there, you will, for example, see, and I'm going to talk, when I use an example, I'm always going to talk about George Rollins because he's, in this world, he's a little bit of a celebrity, and so I don't feel bad talking about him. He's in second place with 4 events, and if you clicked on his name on those rankings,
Hold on now.
see
Hold on
what's
now.
that?
I've just
Yeah,
brought it up. I don't
yeah.
see a George Rawlins here.
But hold on. How can you?
Michael T. Holy is number 1, I see.
Yes.
Then we've
Yes.
got Frank Dalikas, number 2.
Well, wow. Maybe they've added a new event. So
Yeah.
George Rollins on there at all?
He's not in the top 10.
On BCP?
Yeah. This
Or
is the ITC
are you looking at ITC? Are you looking at ITC
Yeah.
or BCP?
No, so this is... I went to the BCP page, right?
Yeah.
I went to rankings. I
I'm
went
excited.
to the Kill Team ITC rankings. Were you not looking at the ITC?
No, not ITC.
Oh,
That's
do you
right.
want the BCP
That's
rankings?
right. Yeah. So no, but
He is number 2.
You've
Okay.
kind of given us a little bit of a lead here
Oh dear.
because what you've pointed out, George's absence, is important. So the BCP rankings are different than the ITC rankings, and they're automatically compiled. And some people might say they're not important at all, but they are a little bit for Kill Team because they have so much more content. Okay. So George, if you click on his name on the BCP rankings, which I guess are hard to find, I'm gonna find it.
No,
myself.
they were easy. They were the second option on the list. I picked the first. I found them.
Nice. Okay.
I'm
So
there,
then,
yeah.
Perfect. You're there. If you click on his name, you'll see like 9 tournaments he's been in because he runs tournaments and he plays in many of them.
Makes sense.
And you'll see all of his different rankings, and you'll see he took first place in a tournament pretty recent, Demons, which I think our label is Gellerpox infected because BCP doesn't acknowledge Demons yet. And then you'll see his Nova scores from last year because this is at least trailing 12 months, maybe all time. I don't know. And he's got lots of scores, but they only took his top 4, which are, I think, 3 Nova scores and his recent first place finish. And out of that, his score is compiled. If you look at the BCP rankings overall, there's almost 1,000 people, I think, who are in there. And that's the reason that the rankings are relevant right now, because it's got a lot of content, and everybody who is playing Kill Team using the BCP app is going to make it into these rankings. And so that kind of gives us a sense of who's where. Now, it has some weaknesses, and I want to briefly talk about those. First, if you have a tournament that then cuts to a single elimination at the end, as LVO did last year, it does not acknowledge the final result. It only acknowledges the seeding going into the final cut. Because that final cut is not done with the BCP. It's just there's only 4 people. The organizer does it pen and paper, doesn't enter it into BCP. BCP never knows about it. So BCP thinks I won LVO. It does not. It thinks Miguel came in third. And that is one of the reasons that I'm in first place on these BCP rankings, right? I have an unfair first place finish at LVO, and then I have legitimate first place finishes at BAO twice, and then at another tournament that Sheldon ran. So that's one ranking we can look at. And if you have played in Kill Team tournaments on BCP, you can find yourself on this, and that might be fun. But the big dog in the ranking world is ITC. That's the independent tournament circuit, and it's run by a company called Frontline Gaming, who puts on a bunch of American tournaments: LVO, SoCal Open, BAO, all the West Coasty tournaments. That's where they're based out of San Diego these days. They're not the only people putting on big tournaments, but they are the only ones who are running a ranking that it's ostensibly international, but really it heavily favors American tournaments, right? I mean, you probably can speak to that. So the ITC, the problem with it is that you have to kind of let them know that you want to be in the rankings, and you've got to take some action to get your tournament to count in the ITC. I don't think this action is hard. I understand that you just request a token on the BCP page, and then it happens. But many people are running tournaments and they're not doing that, perhaps because it hasn't occurred to them, or just they've got enough to do, whatever the case. And one such person is George Rollins. And that's the reason that although George has got a high placing in BCP, he's not even present yet in ITC. And George knows this, and he's working on it to some extent. I think for any tournament organizer out there who's hearing this, I think you can reach out to Frontline Gaming and submit old tournaments from this year. Their tournament starts after LVO, their year, and it runs until next LVO. LVO is the finale of it. And the significance, if you will, of the ITC tournament scene is they will give a tournament out, a trophy out at LVO to whoever's in first place, right? Which is me. And every week on Frontline Gaming's podcast, they give me a shout out for that. But that could be you if you go to tournaments and you get your TO to submit the results, because I'm in first place with 3 smallish tournament wins. I mean, that's all I've got. So if you go to Nova, and God help us if Nova submits the results to ITC, which is no guarantee, but I certainly hope they do, then you will probably be ahead of me already if you win, whoever wins Nova, assuming their results get into ITC. And then we'll have SoCal, which might be big or might be small, and then we'll have LVO. I hope SoCal is big because, and this is not a problem with ITC, this is a feature, not a bug. You can only get credit for 3 smallish tournaments. And a smallish tournament is probably 20 or less, but might be 28 or less. And we don't know how they're going to differentiate that. They do 20 or less for Age of Sigmar. They do 28 for big 40K. Obviously, Kill Team should use a smaller standard, but I don't know how they've got it set up. After those 3, your additional scores, up to a maximum of 5 scores, can only come from larger tournaments. And larger tournaments are also worth more points. So, for instance, Nova will be a larger tournament, should be, and that gets us into another point, but some part of it should be a larger tournament. And if they submit their scores to ITC, then some people will have the opportunity to have 4 scores, because all the other tournaments this year have been small, every single one of them. And so nobody can have more than 3 scores. Somebody will have at least 4, assuming they've been to 3 small tournaments and then they go to Nova. Now, the thing about Nova is they organize it in a funny way. They organize a bunch of small tournaments, and then they do a cut to kind of a medium-sized championship tournament. That's what they did last year. I'm guessing they're doing the same thing this year. The good thing about that is if it's the first tournament you've been to, you're going to get credit for like 3 different tournaments, because you're probably going to be in 2 small pods. They'll count those each as individual tournaments. If you win them, you'll have 2 wins. And then you'll go to the medium-sized championship, and then you'll win that. But the downside is they probably are not going to have a single 64-person event, which would be even more valuable.
My understanding of the format for Nova this year is they are doing a 2-day event, but it is one continuous event. It's not set. It's not split. It's not like SoCal, which is doing one day is one event, the second day is the second. Right. And they are doing however many rounds they are doing on day 1, and then there is a cut to the top, and they are doing a best of 3.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So how they're going to put that into BCP?
Right.
No idea.
That's the trick of it. And so, people are running Kill Team tournaments in ways that seem fun or imaginative or smart, but that's not necessarily what BCP wants. Right? No. BCP wants a tournament to be kind of normal, Swiss style, normal, and so be it, right? So I think that's just, as Kill Team gets bigger, and if the ITC becomes more important, that is a consideration to make. But I think right now people are organizing their tournaments in a way that they feel gives the most people the chance to play, and that maybe it is considering how many boards they have and things like that. So anyway,
the other thing to note quickly is that obviously, as you were saying, not every tournament is using BCP, with the implication that they're using nothing. But we actually know that Adepticon used Game4, didn't it?
Well, I heard that
none
they
of
did,
the
but
Adepticon.
They lost all their data.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed what you said.
Oh no. So none of the Adepticon scores are anywhere to be found.
They are nowhere to be found. Yeah. And the thing is, Frontline Gaming does not require BCP. You can submit paper scores to them, which is a nice feature. But you got to take the work. You got to do the effort of doing that. And as I understand it from Adepticon, they don't even have paper scores, because
I know that Elliot emailed them saying, "Where I think I won, did I?" and I don't think they ever got back to him, or if they did, he didn't share it with me.
They just
But he
wouldn't
had
think of it.
CC'd me in. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
So that is tragic, and that is part of the growing pains, I think. Of and they did not think of that as a competitive event, right? They wanted like lots of people play kill team. Let's see what happens. They had some nice prizes, as I understand it, but
Really nice. Yeah, no, Adepticon was a
yeah,
great event. Just we don't
right.
have any data from it. That's all.
We don't have any data from it, and they didn't really get the best players to play each other, which was a little bit of a downer too. Like,
Yeah,
why couldn't they have?
the pod system was an odd one. Yeah.
Well, they could have just taken the 8 pod winners from the morning, had them play in a single pod at night, call it the champion pod, link it to the same event, so it would have been a 64-person. I mean, I don't know if that's within the moral rules of frontline gaming, but it seems reasonable to me. And they could have just let everybody else either play for fun in the afternoon, just had pods for fun or whatever, and they could have done the same thing the second day, and they would have given people a much better chance to sort of, see, because I know those Poxwalkers tore it up, but I don't know how they would have done against Tau. That's just my thinking on the subject.
Yeah, I've got to say, when Elliot was explaining to me the format of Adepticon, I was quite confused. I was almost exactly as you said. I was like, oh, so okay, you play a small pod, then then in the evening you play everybody else that won, right? So it's like no, it's like oh, yeah, that was weird.
Yeah,
That was weird.
whatever. Not an ideal competitive environment, but it did get a lot of games in and gave a chance to see Kill Team, and hopefully that's good too. So for the ITC, here's hoping that SoCal is big enough that it counts as a big event. If it doesn't, then probably somebody who goes to Nova and LVO is going to win, because they're going to be the only people with 5 scores. And so be it. Those are the rules of the game, and growing pains of the ITC. But if SoCal's big, I intend to be a competitive entrant come LVO time. So we'll see.
Well, I believe we've sold 18 tickets so far, and
18.
considering we're still 2 months out,
Yeah, it's not bad.
that's okay. So
yeah, no. I mean, certainly looks promising for the 20-man standard, which we'll have possibly some FaceTime with Reese when we're there, and we can talk to him a little bit about that. And I think he'd probably agree that the 20-man standard is good. But yeah, so that's what I wanted to say. I just want to kind of make people aware of the ITC and the BCP. I think it's fun to look at rankings, and I think other people do too, judging by the success of the ITC and Big 40K. And so we just got to make people aware of it, so the TOs take the extra step to make sure their tournaments count.
I agree 100%, purely because obviously I'm in the UK, right? So we're in a different scene entirely. We cannot compare our schools at all using BCP. I have only played in 2 tournaments, one of which wasn't using BCP, and the other of which was a friendly get-together between 8 of us. And just to make it easier, we used BCP so that we could do rankings. Turns out I'm top of the UK score. So
nice work.
I should not be. I should not be. So yeah.
Oh.
If everybody else wants to get on that and put in BCP rankings, you will overtake Glass Half Dead in like 2 games. So
could be done. Well, and then I know that Major Tom seems to be, a force out there, but he hates BCP, unfortunately. So what are you going to do? But again, and just to say, like Warhammer World, if somebody had the data, I think that even now you could submit that, if you follow the procedure, to Frontline Gaming in paper form and get that tournament to count, which is it's a 17-person tournament, substantial. And
was the arena one was 28.
Wow, was it really?
Yep.
28 people?
Yeah, they did a limit of 28. Yeah.
Well, if that was 28 people, that'd be the biggest tournament of the year. I mean, it is the biggest single tournament of the year. I mean, it is, because the Adepticon was a bunch of 8-man tournaments.
Yeah, that's true. but Nova is about to be, I believe, 64-man.
Right.
So that's big.
That will be bigger. That will be bigger. But still, Warhammer World, that's a big one to have not gotten. So in any case, we will, if nothing else, we'll do better next year. But, you know, if you've got a tournament and you think you did well and you care about it and you can get the data accurately put together, you know, reach out to Frontline Gaming or reach out to Kill Team Academy or Kill Team Stream on the Discord, the Glass Half Dead Discord, and I bet they will be able to help you. Sorry to volunteer you guys for that, but I bet they would be willing to help you get your scores in to Reese and the guys at Frontline Gaming and get some credit for your players.
Definitely. No, it's a really good idea. Because as you say, is there a decay on it? Do you know? Like if...
Well,
like
I don't know about BCP, and so we will see after Nova. If the old Nova drops off, then we'll know that they do trailing 12 months. ITC starts after LVO and will go until LVO, and then they will start again.
Okay, fair. No, I think there's all good points, and certainly I am about to attend another tournament, August 24th. I'm going to try and get them to do it through BCP so that we can at least get a bit more data on there. And since I'm attending, if I win again, I'm basically undefeatable on the BCP rankings.
Yes.
So I won't win. Let's
you might. What are you bringing?
Grey Knights.
What are you bringing? You might win.
Grey Knights on an open field.
Yeah.
Like,
well, maybe a little tougher on an open field.
Yeah. I just I was smacking my head against 100 with elites, which is actually better for Grey Knights, I'd argue, because I'm getting the 2 Cybolts and I'd only get 1 extra person at 125.
Right.
But I'm a bit negative on them right this moment because last night I played 4 games against Plasma Spam Imperial Guard very deliberately, and that's a tough matchup. Yeah, it was luck of the dice.
Yeah. Well, it can be. You know, I mean, Plasma Spam is people don't. You know, if you play 6 games with Plasma Spam, you're gonna have 1 game where you blow yourself up really bad. You know,
luck of the dice.
And so maybe that'll be the game against you.
Yes, let's hope so. Right. That's the dream. That's the dream. I roll hot. He rolls not.
Right.
Yes.
Sometimes you need that on the tough matchup. So you know, in any case, even 1 loss. I won one of the days of BAO with 1 loss. So
that is true. That is true. If everybody takes a loss, I could win on VP. Right.
So okay. Well, that's
Shall we talk about Asuryani?
Sure, Asuryani. I mean, okay. So what would you like to talk about Asuryani?
Okay. Yeah. If I was a good interviewer, I'd have written down like a set of questions, but I haven't, so we're going to ad-lib this.
You don't need to.
Asuryani, after elites. Yes. Let's just take it in isolation. How did elites affect Asuryani?
Well, I think elites were good for Asuryani. I don't think our sub-faction traits are very good, and I know Birinid made them one of the top 3. I think that is not a good assessment, and I could explain that in more length. But
Birinid wrong. That's going to be the title of this episode. There you go.
He's wrong about Bealtown. He might be right about a lot of other things. But and I do like, you know, I mean, what I've seen of him from his Death Watch, from the Demons. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of neat thinking out of him. And so I think that Birin is often right, but I do think he's wrong about Bealtown.
Could you define Bealtown for the listeners?
Yeah, Bealtown. I mean, there's a bunch of, you know, Asuryani's factions: Bealtown, Yulthway, Yenden, Samhan, and the Aletok. They're all hard to say, but I say them right. So if you say them differently, you should change because I speak for the Asuryani. And most of them are not that good. I think there's 3 that are viable: Yulthway, Bealtown, and Yenden potentially. And the Bealtown one gives you it lets you reroll 1s with shuriken weaponry, which is a huge caveat. And it lets you have +1 leadership to your aspect warriors, which is a subset of your units. So that's what Biel-Tan does. And the reason, among other reasons, that it's not good is that the Tau have the same ability with no caveats. They reroll one with every shot. They get +1 leadership, and the leadership power is enormously more important for them than for Eldari. I've played 21 tournament games in Kill Team, just looking at the tournament games, and I have rolled 1 break test. I don't mean I've failed 1 break test. I mean I have been called upon to roll for a break test 1 time in 44 rounds of, or whatever. I mean, they said 21 games, so 84 rounds of Kill Team play, 1 break test roll. So that tells me that I don't need +1 leadership to pass break tests that much. I mean, it was great to have. The time I rolled, it would have been nice to succeed on a 9 instead of on an 8. But you know, the units in my team that fail nerve tests and become shaken are inevitably the defenders who have the lower leadership, and they don't get improved by the Biel-Tan trait. And then, just since I'm talking about this, I'll finish talking about it. In my looking at my 125 point, and I know I just jumped to a different point score and everything. In my 125 point elites Asuryani team, you can look at the number of models who have shuriken weapons, but it's really more significant to look at the percentage of the firepower that is represented by shuriken weapons. Because a star cannon is worth a lot more than a shuriken catapult, right? And so if you count a pistol as worth about 2 points and you count a shuriken catapult as worth about 4 and just kind of assume everybody's going to be able to get in range effectively, then you find that a star cannon's worth, I think, on the order of 12 or 15 points, just kind of looking at the general effectiveness against a broad spectrum. And the result of that is that shuriken weaponry is about 30% of my list. So I'm getting to reroll 1s and getting a 17% bonus on about 30%. So that is less than a 6% buff to my offense. And then a pretty unnecessary boost to my leadership. And we have to contrast that with Yulthway, which is a 17%, but pretty consistent 17% on defense. Not as much against multi-damage weapons, but otherwise. And it affects psychic and everything else. So even though durability is not what Asuryani do, the difference in the buff is so great. And then if Yulthway is about as good as Biel-Tan, then you can see how we fare against other sub-factions, because several of the sub-factions have the Yulthway ability, and it's certainly better for Astartes than it is for us. Durability is their thing, so improving something you're already good at is typically a little bit more valuable. And comparing that to the Tau ability, I mean, it's at least 3 times as good. Just looking at the my numbers from the shuriken catapult and then extrapolating, leadership is about the same. And then I do think the Tau is the single best sub-faction trait, but obviously the Tyranid Kraken is quite good, and the Salamanders is very good too. So our sub-faction trait's not that great, but the new units we got are certainly useful. The Exarchs are in a lot of my lists.
If I may interrupt very briefly,
Yes.
When you are building lists at the moment, and I was about to ask one question, I'll change it. Does the way you build a list change between 100 and 125? And currently, are you preferring to play at 100 or 125? Do you think one of those is more balanced than the other? What are your thoughts on that there?
Well, it changes the dynamics. Astartes is more viable at 120. Asuryani is worse, in my opinion, at 125 than they are at 100. They're really pressured on their roster at 125 in the sense that they have a fair number of units that aren't that expensive. And so if you're dealing with a 12-person team, you only have so much room to vary that in a 20-man roster. And at a 125, they might be tempted to have taken a 14-man team, but that's really not an option to still give you the flexibility you need in that roster space. So they, they're pretty bound to take the 3 Exarchs, and the 3 Exarchs are good, but they're not good in every situation. And you can, I do have some options to not take all 3 of them, but it's pretty lean. And my ways of doing that within the confines of a 20-man roster are limited. By contrast, Astartes are hugely helped by going to 125. They go from, I'd say, typically 6 bodies to typically 8, even though 25 points doesn't necessarily buy you 2 Astartes bodies. It's just that that's just how it works out. And then another team that I think is hugely helped by 125 is, in my opinion, Tau. And I would call them the clear strongest single faction at 125, unquestionably on an open board. But I think in Arena too, just from my experimentation, and I have come to that conclusion pretty recently. And I'm about to go on another tangent here. So if you had a follow-up question to what I just said, throw it in there.
Okay. For the Tau lovers, are you mainly facing off against like the most competitive drone spam type Tau?
Well, here's the
Or just all
thing.
Tau?
At 100 points, Tau has to choose between what I would call kind of an optimal level of drone spam and then an optimal level of firepower. Because if you take the optimal drone spam, you're not going to get the 3 rail rifles. You're certainly not going to have a stealth suit. And they have to make a choice. But at 125, they can have both. They can have all the rail rifles and a stealth suit and what I would consider kind of the right number of drones all at the same time. And the other thing that they can swap out a crisis suit. They can have a crisis suit on their list, which is, I do think it's a valuable unit. It's not a valuable unit in every fight, but it is. I would, as we've seen Utsicle say, I think 3 Flamers is the really sweet spot for that. And it's just because the main problem with a Flamer is that, the Poxwalker can charge you and 50% chance he makes it, right? More than 50%, because you might actually just not wound him. But even if you do, it's going to be you're going to have to make that roll, and it could be a flesh wound, right? Having 3 Flamers completely addresses that problem. They fire independently, so you survive the first. You've got to then survive an independent attack from the second, and it's going to stack up flesh wounds until they get the out of action. So it's just that's a model that's really unchargeable for most things. Even things with 3-up saves really have to think twice. And then it's also offensively quite powerful, and it flies. It's very durable, and it's even more durable when you consider the intelligent use of drones nearby it, right? Which can take that one. Everything else in elites is 1 fusion gun away from death, but not Tau, and not if they're played well. They you really can't waste your fusion shots on their good units because they're going to have a drone there to back it up. And so they have a new flexibility. Instead of choosing between drone spam and firepower, they're now choosing between kind of everything they wanted at their 100-point list, and then maybe moderating that a little bit to get that crisis suit, which is going to be a game changer in some circumstances. And I think that is an outstanding level of flexibility.
Okay, just a very quick note for everybody that likes to be rules lawyers. Technically, as opposed to real lawyers, sorry,
Yeah.
crisis suits cannot be affected by savior protocols, but we're pretty sure that's incorrect and it's going to be FAQ.
How they're going to play it. Right,
And in Nova, they have said in their FAQ that crisis suits can. So we know they can't, but they can, basically.
Right. No, and I knew that, but I forgot it after I saw the note. It's like, because people are already saying this is pretty dumb. And then, my thought in my mind was, well, it is dumb, but it's also like kind of important for balance. But then, people tend to go with what feels right. And certainly at Nova, they go with what feels right over rules is written a lot. And so be it. So I wouldn't be surprised if that becomes the thing. And yeah, if you ask me, that's the team to beat in Nova, first of all. Well, okay, let me stop. Nova's 100 points. So I do think, That changes it. But at SoCal, I mean, I'm anticipating the Tau is the team to beat.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, I think Tau have always been a threat. When Arena released and somebody figured out drone spam, I think a lot of people were very, very scared. Now, I personally haven't ever faced drone spam, so I've
Oh,
never
wow.
seen it in the flesh or in the circuits, but I don't want to, but I have
Yeah.
seen them being played. And for example, in the tournament that I recently TO'd, there were two Tau lists. This was 125. They both took, I think it was Borkan, the one that lets you reroll the ones. One of them came third. One of them came second to last.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Well, there's no
player
question there's a
skill.
player
Yeah,
skill component.
who knows?
I'll tell you, when I play 100-point Asuryani against Tau, it's kind of a toss up playing against myself, and that was before we added elites, which gave them a sub faction trait. That's the way to beat Tau previously was to break them. That's their weakness. So probably a lot of the drone spam specifically would be 7 leadership would be their highest, and the drones are 6. Given every one of them a +1, that's that's a very large percentage improvement. It makes it that much less feasible to do that. So, in any case,
Quick,
so that's my thoughts.
final one before you go off on your tangent. I just wanted to pull
No,
you
I
back.
got
You said that Bealtan isn't as good as Birinid says. However, you do use Bealtan, right?
Well, I used it at
Yeah.
BAO, but I'm thinking Yulthway for SoCal.
And which one is Ulthway?
Yulthway is a 6-up, feel no pain.
Okay, interesting.
I mean, there's a lot of versatility, and if you 125, I'll have 3 X-Arcs. The X-Arcs are moderately durable models, and so that's going to be a difference maker for them, I think. And just on the whole, yeah, I mean, I like 17% across the board better than I like 6% offense, I think is the bottom line. I don't think that leadership comes up very much.
All right.
So just looking at my history.
Feel free to go off on your
That being
tangent.
said, I am strongly considering only taking Asuryani one day at SoCal.
And are you willing to share with the audience what the
Right.
other faction is?
Well, it's in process, but I will tell you that I was thinking Astartes. And then the tangent I was going to go on was to tell you my voyage of discovery with Astartes in the past couple months and kind of how that came to be. And then I will tell you kind of how I've tabled the project.
Okay, interesting. Go for it.
So then it started with, even when Warhammer was coming on. So I'm going to tell you something that's controversial, but that I've always kind of felt, and it's going to be unpopular maybe for some people to hear. I think in general, Astartes players are just a little bit weaker than the players of most other factions.
Wow.
It's something about Astartes. It draws a lot of faith-based players.
So Birinid is wrong, and people that play Space Marines are losers, weaklings.
Are not as good.
Well,
in general, obviously there's exceptions, right? There's exceptions. There's strong players who play every faction, but I think the average Space Marine player, they are drawn to Space Marines because they like, a lot of times they like the books and that kind of stuff. And they want their Space Marines to be like they are in the books, which in the books are Imperial propaganda designed to make the citizens of the Imperium feel safe.
Very true.
And so obviously in those books, the Space Marines never lose, and they're like indestructible because that's what people need to hear. But on the table, Space Marines are not that way. And there's just something about Space Marines players. They kind of want to. They don't care that much about statistics sometimes. And they just kind of go in there, and the Emperor protects, and then. And the dice get rolled and it doesn't go that way. And I've noticed a lot more of that. And all of my early games, I was playing Eldari against a wide variety of Space Marine players. And those guys, they want to get everybody into the center of the table. They want their very expensive leader model to fight your expensive leader model one-on-one. And that's how they want the game to go. And if you make the game do something else, it frustrates them, first of all. I mean,
they
I think
don't
it
have
affects
answers.
Yeah, it affects their enjoyment of the game, but it really throws them off strategically too. So, and that's unfortunate that both of those things happen because you don't want to be playing against somebody and ruining their experience. But at the same time, like, I mean,
it's a tournament.
So, it's a tournament. Yeah, what are you going to do? What are you
Yeah.
going to do? And so when you play friendly games against your Space Marine buddies, just get everything into the center of the board. Let them roll some dice. They're gonna like you as an opponent better for that. Okay, so that's my Space Marine. Just I don't know, bigotry exposed.
No, sure. Hey, I mean, I just told you I was a Grey Knight player, and
Right.
I'm number 1 in the UK apparently. So it's fine. Exception to the rule.
So I sensed in the wins last year that that Games Workshop had decided that they were going to do what they needed to do to make Space Marine players start winning. And it started really with Death Watch being quite a good codex, and then it moved into Bolter Drill when that wasn't enough, and when they, people didn't want to have just one unit of Death Watch because they want to play pure Blood Angels. That's what they got to be allowed to do. So then Bolter Drill, and they have, as I sort of felt they might, just continue to give Space Marines more buffs. And I think at this point, I think they might have done enough. I think that we will see, because the Space Marine statistics are never good because of that phenomenon I mentioned before. Even though individual Space Marines do occasionally win, the statistics are never going to be good. But I think they've given them enough. It's going to come around. But having seen the way this was going and anticipating that meant we were going to have a lot of really cool Space Marine models come out, and probably not any Eldari, I'd kind of just decided that was my gut feeling. And I was like, I want to paint some new stuff in the next year, so I bought some Space Marines.
So just to fill in anyone that hasn't watched the first interview, firstly, shame on them. However, your Asuryani models are the ones from decades back, old enough to drink now, metal models, right? And when you decided to start playing Kill Team, you didn't buy any new models. You had them, and you thought, okay.
Right. Well, I mean, I've slowly bought new models. I mean, for instance, to get my 2,000 point team, I had to buy some new models.
Oh, sure. But your original investment into a 100-point Kill Team, you had the models.
Not really. I mean, the Dire Avengers are plastic, but they're 12 years old. Right. And I've got those, and I've got the Guardian box is also about 12 years old, and it is plastic. But my Banshees and my Scorpions are metal. And I mean, the alternative would be Finecast. That's worse.
Yeah.
So I bought one Ranger squad in Finecast because I wanted 10 Rangers in my 40K team, and it was a terrible experience. I'll never buy it again. So.
Yeah.
So yeah, since just looking at the writing on the wall, I'm like, they've given us a lot of Marine stuff, but I think they're going to give us a lot more. I turned out to be right. They've given us a lot of Marine stuff, and so I wanted some cool new sculpts and stuff to play with, and that's what I bought one of the Christmas boxes, and so then I had some. They were all Primaris, yeah. It was Intercessors, Reavers, and the guys that dropped down, Inceptors, and so the result of that was that my repping of games against Astartes got a lot better because now I had some actual Astartes models. But then then I was looking at Death Watch in Kill Team, because Death Watch, in addition to being Astartes and conceivably being moddable from things I have, they have like a million options, and that's pretty cool. That's like fun to make a roster out of and experiment with different things you could do and be creative. And then Elites dropped, and basically Death Watch, I mean, I don't want to say they became obsolete, but they kind of did, because Astartes got so many options that there's not a lot of incentive to take Death Watch over them, in my opinion. Anymore.
Mike, you're giving me too many options to title the episode. Okay, now we've got Death Watch is obsolete. Keep going. I'll take notes.
There you go. Just write them all down. You can. So, I think at this point, Astartes can do all the flexibility things that Death Watch can do, and then they just got more depth to it. So I think by and large, that would be my preference. Would be to, if I was looking to win, and I wanted to use a Space Marine like thing, certainly I could consider Grey Knights, but I think that Astartes was interesting. So I started playing with the Astartes list, and then I made a couple, and then I thought, well, can this really be viable? Let me play it against my Eldari list, and this was at 125 because that was the other thing that changed. That really broke it open. And so I played a game, and the Eldari did win. Astartes really hung in there. Like, even though they lost a lot of units early, the core of them were hard to take out. And so I kind of developed the list a little bit more, played a second game, and the Astartes actually got a crushing victory in that. It was Desperate Destruction on the arena map, Desperate Destruction. It was close quarters, and the elves didn't have a chance. Played a couple more games. They were doing all right, and so I said, this is viable. I mean, if I couldn't beat Eldari, then, it's kind of a non-starter. But if I can kind of win against them, at least sometimes against myself, then we can start thinking about other challenges the list may face.
Well, I've got to jump in.
Yeah.
Which sub-faction?
I'm doing Salamanders.
Okay.
Right now, yeah. I mean, I think pretty much a standard, preserving all of the command points for Death Denied, and then using Salamanders to get those rerolls in there. Nonetheless, that was the.
How do you feel? I'm sure you know, but obviously Nova is ruling that Death Denied will be 3 CP.
Right.
Do you think that invalidates Adeptus Astartes?
Well, I don't know if it invalidates them, but I mean, it certainly invalidates them. So I'd have to kind of test again in a different way. But I mean, it's pretty tough for them, I will say for sure. And I've heard some people say, well, you're actually hurting yourself if you save up for Death Denied because you're not doing the vet, but there's just nothing, being able to put a model with a really powerful weapon just into a vulnerable position and know that he will fire with no penalty, no matter what, is powerful. You know what I mean? Because not no matter strong. What, they could shoot him 4 or 5 times and maybe but the odds that you're going to get that shot up is really powerful. And just to be able to be so aggressive with a model really opens up what you can do strategically. So that's a lot to lose, and it's not even usable the first turn, so that, and Space Marines being a little bit more elite, they can't afford as much to hold back, maybe. I mean, I shouldn't say that conclusively, but that's kind of my thought, and it's not compatible with the way I've been playing. Maybe I'll say that.
Okay. Okay. Sub-faction out the way. Yeah. Sorry. Keep going.
So yes, that Salamander sub-faction for the Astartes. So the second thing I thought of, the unit that I thought would really be a challenge for them to beat was Grey Knights, in fact. Because if you're somewhat elite, Grey Knights are a real challenge. And that was so. First few games I played, the Grey Knights were devastating. Even in one game, I killed 3 Grey Knights out of the 6, because this is a 125, the first turn, and the Grey Knights still won that game. Just because kind of once they break through and once they kind of get to spots on the board where they want to be, approaching them with an individual Astartes is like almost guaranteed suicide. It was a tough road. But I eventually developed a list with some, a lot of Primaris and some Grav weaponry that I was getting about 50-50 on. And so at that point, I actually made a roster to see if I could, even fit this and what I had on the Eldari list together. And then I had to modify it to make it a little bit less good against Grey Knights, but I modified it. It was still good enough. So then I moved on to some other factions. And so I tried Tyranids, and here's another hot take. I just devastated Tyranids in every match. Every match I played against them. They, in my opinion, it's not a good matchup for Tyranids to play against
Eldari.
Yeah. Astartes.
Against Astartes. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm trying my Astartes against different factions.
Right.
So Astartes against Eldari did all right. Astartes against Grey Knight had to do a lot of modification, but got to that spot. Moved to Tyranids next, thinking that would be a new kind of challenge, and it did not. It did not prove to be a challenge at all.
So it didn't matter if they were taking Hordes, Raveners, Warriors, Lictors. You had answers for everything.
It felt like the Astartes had a pretty solid answer for them. And,
okay.
All those. Just me playing against me, and that's not to say that it's everybody's, but so yeah, Tyranids were not a problem for that particular matchup. And of course, not a lot of people are playing good Astartes lists out there, so it's not surprising we wouldn't see that. But so then I thought, well, what else is going to be a challenge? And I thought, well, Tau were going to be a challenge, and I played a couple games, and they went so badly that I just tabled the project.
Wow. Okay. Okay. I assume just
I lost.
Knock you away.
I lost hopelessly, and then I was like, okay, well, what can I change? And I looked at my roster, and I had nothing on my roster that would be better. And then I said, well, okay, maybe we have to scrap the roster. Maybe I just have to look at the whole litany of things that are available. And I had some ideas, and then I brought a second game, and we lost again. And I was like, boy, I don't know if I can figure this out at all. It might not be solvable. That was kind of my take. This is at 125, and so thinking about the things we thought about before. So previous to that, I was like, I'm going to bring Astartes. I'm going to surprise everybody, bring Astartes to the open terrain day. I had initially thought they'd be good on Arena because I liked the Infiltrator. I thought that'd be a neat thing to be able to set it up anywhere. You look like you want to say something.
No. No. It's all good.
I thought the Infiltrator would be cool to be able to deploy outside of your zone and stuff. And I just didn't find it to be useful. I mean, I tried it again and again, and it almost always kind of worked against me. So ultimately, that was not as impressive. So then without that, Astartes in Arena are not doing anything special. But I found that on open boards, their ability to shoot almost anything they want with that Scout missile launcher that I usually take, he has long enough range that he doesn't get a minus for that. He ignores cover because of the aspects that's somewhere. You can give him the comms. You got a reroll and the salamander on top of that. He just unfailingly can, kind of kill something.
Kill
that was one of the problems with Tyranids. On an open board, they got a big model and they got to be able to hide it. And the scout can move before he shoots because I make him heavy, so he doesn't have a penalty on that either. Really, really hard to avoid that. And of course, I had 2 warrior lists, but that one of them was going down, and if not that, then a devourer was going to. They were getting a big bug out of the game right off the bat, really consistently. And then Astartes just have nothing to fear from guns, right? I mean, yeah, you can tie them up, and there is that, but I mean, an Astartes can get into combat with 4 gaunts, and he'll never. His odds are still in his favor. It's not to say he's never going to die. And you bring flamers and all this other great stuff, and it's just it's a devastating thing. So that's where I ended up with the Astartes, and so open board really did not have an answer to Tau. I'm gonna think about it and then go back to it eventually, I'm sure. But at that point, I was like, well, maybe I can bring Tau to SoCal. So if I can find models to borrow, because I'm not going to buy a whole Tau force and paint them. I don't have time for that. But if I do have 3 different people I know in the area who play Tau. So if one of them is willing to loan it to me, and then maybe I just buy 1 or 2 models to round it out, I might do that. So maybe Astartes, maybe Tau. One of my.
Are you always running Tau as Borkan?
I thought it was called Sazwi or something. I don't know the name.
Yeah, okay.
I'm running it as the thing that's +1 leadership and reroll 1s to shoot. And
that one. I don't know the Tau, so.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I mean, I'm just learning. But the more I learn, the more terrified I become. So, I think that's again best sub faction in the Elites book. On a strong faction already, and the stronger one at 125. I think that's the answer. And of course, at SoCal, we have an open day and an arena day. They're distinct. So, I mean, if Tau don't win that open day, then maybe they got some bad dice. I mean, anybody can have bad dice, but that's the smart money's for Tau on Sunday at SoCal, in my opinion. And so I might be bringing the Tau.
Okay. Fair.
One thing about my testing is that, of course, I played a lot of Eldari against a lot of things, but I'm trying to test different things against each other, like orcs against Astartes, and because I think that it's giving me a broader understanding of the game, and that's maybe more useful than just sort of doing the same thing with my Asuryani over and over again as I play, sometimes against Miguel, but often against myself. So there you go. Digression concluded.
Okay. Are we going back to elites now in that case?
Hey, wait, no, back to tell
While
me
we're
what do you
here,
think?
though,
We can now talk
while we're
about it.
off something else,
Yeah.
I I was going to ask you because SoCal, I believe, is doing terrain placement, right?
Yeah, I think so on the open day. Yeah.
Have you been practicing terrain placement, or do you kind of already know what you want? You know you want a big line of sight blocker here, a wall here, a second
Hmm.
floor here, or are you actively testing?
I haven't thought a lot about that. I'll tell you what I'm doing with terrain. And the last time we spoke, I did not have terrain. I used Legos. But then I won some terrain at LVO. I won some terrain at Sheldon's tournament in San Jose. I won some terrain at BAO, and I have built that terrain. And so I am trying to build really interesting, creative boards with the terrain I have, which is Death Watch Forest, the Frontieris board. Actually, two of those I've only put together one of them, and then I've got some pieces from Arena, and then I've got the pipes and stuff from the Reaver box.
That's a good
And
amount of terrain.
it's outstanding. And I've got, every board, I've got kind of a vision of how to integrate those pieces to make sort of a sensible looking. So I'm building narrative boards. I think that'd be a fair thing to say.
No, nothing wrong with that.
And they're not equal. They're not symmetrical. And then I'm just playing on them kind of, and that I think with open, you have to train with the assumption that the terrain's just going to be a little bit erratic and you can't count on any particular thing being available, right? That's the mentality. And so my narrative boards present that because I haven't thought about, is there enough line of sight blocking in this area versus that area? And sometimes one side's just better than the other and what have you. But I think that I don't want to say it doesn't matter for the Tau, but it doesn't matter tremendously. Obviously, if there's a lot of line of sight blocking, that would matter. But there's probably not going to be a lot of line of sight blocking.
Well, if you recall the pictures from Adepticon, I believe Elliot did point out that the boards were quite heavy, and so he basically got free movement turn one almost. Obviously the boards were slightly different. And he would always place a big line of sight blocker in the middle, so he got all of his poxwalkers up. Then turn two, he went where he wanted, almost unhindered. So it could be a big.
And then maybe I should look at the Adepticon pictures and assume it might be like, if I decide to go with Tau and test them, think about that. For the Astartes, they're happy to have some line of sight blocking. They kind of go both ways. They're very flexible. In my experience, Asuryani and Tau have a great ability to get around line of sight blocking terrain because they move so well, right? The Tau fly 8-inch. They fly and advance and still shoot on their 6s. The rail rifles will be a little bit more limited, but they move and shoot too. So I think, and the Tau have a lot of bodies. So those rail rifles go down at the end when you kind of know where you want things to go. I wasn't at Adepticon, so it's hard to know, and I haven't played Elliot, and he might be doing some things that are just very creative or that I'm not anticipating, but I tend to think people shot at the wrong things on his army.
Well, 16 poxwalkers is pretty creative, so.
No, we cannot deny that. Perhaps you said that sarcastically.
That was
sarcastic, he comes up
yes.
with lists he comes up with lists that are good meta lists. There could be no doubt of that.
Definitely, yeah.
But I think that I think a lot of people must have shot at his Plague Marines because they just didn't understand how the list works, or how it worked, or how it was going to beat them. That was probably the wrong way to handle that. But again, if somebody brings Poxwalker spam to a new tournament that I'm at, then I'll get a chance to test out my theories, and otherwise I'm just speculating.
Yeah, fair enough.
So yeah, I probably need to do some work on terrain placement because maybe I'm underestimating it.
Okay, well, obviously this is somebody that is not as good as you, but I like to think that once you have played a lot of games, you just kind of know the terrain that you want. And even though you have maybe not been able to place it yourself before, as long as you've given it a bit of thought, even if you haven't actually practiced, you know where you want the enemy to be blocked and where you want to
Sure.
ruin. And I feel it's intuitive.
Yeah.
But then any
Well,
argument that starts with, "Oh, just use common sense," isn't an argument. So
yeah.
yeah,
No, there probably, I mean, there probably is a little bit more game to it than that. But I mean, you're right. And I recall, I mean, challenge at BAO on the open tables, because sometimes I really couldn't get that much cover for units I wanted to, and what have you. So it's something to think about, but I haven't got there yet.
fair enough. Shall we take it back to elites in that case? We had a bit of an
Sure.
overview about where you felt Asuryani now sat, but what about the individual units? What do you think of the standouts? What are you never taking?
Well, I'm never taking any Wraith Guard or Wraith Blades.
I
They're
thought that would be your answer. Do you want to
yeah.
explain why? I already know why you've said that, obviously, because we've talked before, and it was
Yeah.
almost your key to how you won with Asuryani was, I'm sure, exactly what you're about to say, which is how many points they cost.
Yeah.
But do you want to let people know?
Yeah, well, I mean, the rates are really expensive. I mean, they're 40 points. They're not. I mean, I don't know if a Wraith Blade is that much better than a Lich Guard. It costs half the price. I mean, they technically do have some stats, but just in terms of their usefulness, they're very killable by a fusion gun, one shot, unless you bring the Axe guy. He's got the 4-up invuln, but anybody else, I mean, there are some weapons that can just take them out in one turn. You have no invuln, unlike even a Terminator, and their offense is pretty one-dimensional, right? I mean, either they have melee weapons, and the sword guy is doing single damage, so he's not likely to consistently take people out of action. They're slow. The gun guy has a fusion gun. I mean, I've got two 10-point models with fusion guns. I don't need a 40-point model with fusion gun. And then the flamer it's only D3 flamer, first off. And although it's very high strength, it does 1 damage at the end of it. Yeah, I mean, none of those weapons are outstanding. And boy, I mean, I've thought about it every way. I mean, I think if you had like a map like Desperate Destruction from the Arena book, which is the bottom line is you're all kind of incentivized to just cram into the hall, assuming you don't get your doors blocked, which can also happen on that map. You're incentivized to kind of cram into the middle and have a scrum. And maybe the Axe guy is of some value in that scenario. But I mean, the roster spots are too precious. I don't have an extra roster spot to just throw away. And I think it would be pretty rare. Initially I thought, well, you're going to take a Wraith for sure because you're going to want to keep your opponent on their toes. But I don't think any of my smart opponents would actually be on their toes. I think they would just recognize that if he takes that, he's reducing his capabilities.
May as well concede. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe it's not that bad. It's just you gotta think about your cost benefit analysis, and those rates are not priced effectively. So, in my opinion, and somebody who wants to play with them and do well, they can prove me wrong. But I've thought about it a fair bit, and I just cannot find any way to take them. So that's out.
Yeah.
I currently do have a single regular Scorpion and a single regular Banshee on my list. So in specialized circumstances, I have found an occasion to take the regular version of those. But I think by and large, those are specialized units, and that like an Eldari list built around Howling Banshees would not be that good. As opposed to one that's built around, basically Guardians. And now the Exarchs are good. They all behave a little bit differently, and you probably can't have as many iterations on your roster as you want, and so that's one of the big things fighting for roster space. First off, you're going to swap out your flamers for your fusion gun. That's one thing. Second, you're going to want to swap out your Exarchs for a variety of And then the third thing is you want to actually be able to swap out the Exarchs and not take them, and then you have to take something that's more bodies in their place, and that's the real pressure. So the bottom line is you end up, I think, in 125 points Asuryani, even taking Exarchs in some lists where you would not really want them the best. You would not want them as much. And that's just how it's got to be. For instance, you kind of have to take somebody who does multi-damage against Necrons, which historically has not been the way I wanted to approach Necrons. I use all single damage weapons. Not that multi-damage are the end of the world against them. I mean, a 2-damage weapon is, it kills more often, right? It also does nothing more often, but it's a balance. But I like, the strategy of just stacking flesh wounds on them and sort of being able to be consistent with that and then avoid the 6s with the reroll. And I can't do that with my 125 point list. I have to take a guy who does multi-damage because I don't have enough roster flexibility. I have to take some AP against Harlequins because even though I don't need it, I have to pay for that because I don't have the roster spots to avoid it entirely as I have in the past. So that's that. So, and I think every single possible Exarch has got a use, right? The Biting Blade Scorpion is a little more points efficient, and sometimes he's good against Tyranids in particular, right? The AP -1 is good enough, and 2 damage consistently is very nice. You need the Claw against Astartes type things because you really need that AP -3, and then you're willing to take D3 damage because the AP is more important. And and you're willing to pay the 4 extra points, which is not insubstantial. And initially, when I saw that, I was like, 21 points. I'm never going to take that guy. Too expensive. But at 125, and with everything else, that can be done. The Banshee with the Executioner 17-point model is a great value. She does have limits, but she was certainly my all-star at BAO. For anybody who kind of followed those games, I think she had more amazing performances by far than any other model I brought. Even though I think I brought the Scorpion with Biting Blade just as he just didn't come out quite as well. And I noticed that my video connection has gone to red, so I don't know if you're still seeing.
It flashed out a little bit, but you're back. You're back already.
No big deal.
Yeah, we got the audio.
But yeah, that Banshee is nice.
Just to
now
interrupt quickly,
yes.
Was the Banshee the MVP there because of her awesome ability of not taking Overwatch? I mean,
yes, to an extent. Although, if I think about the different games she played in one, the guy used Astartes against me, and he used an Infiltrator to get close, and that gave the Banshee a turn 1 charge, and that was. And she gets a reroll of charges for free. That's nice too. The Overwatch wasn't important on that one, although of course he could have retreated. So I mean, it's always important. Stopping the retreat as well as the Overwatch is nice. And then in the Tau games, I mean, the Banshee, won the first game against Duval for sure, coming in and killing the stealth suit. And in the second game, the Banshee actually did not accomplish that much, but I think that the fear she created did have a big impact on the game. She was always, I think another thing, and this is just a little bit random dice, she was always kind of able to make that charge roll. It just, she never had like a 4 and then a 5, right? She always got that 8 or 9 on one of those 2 rolls. And so that is incredibly powerful. And, you often you're going to position her in such a way that you're charging 2 things in vastly different areas. She was also huge in the game against the Astra Militarum again by Drama. It's funny, I don't even know his real name anymore. But
I know very few of my Discord members' real names, even the ones I've
right. But man, that was great. Yeah, the Overwatch was important because she was charging Pius Vorn among other people. We made a mistake there. Pius Vorn retreated from her, which he shouldn't have been allowed to do. But I didn't catch it at the time, and he didn't catch it. But yeah, she was devastating. Got into the back lines, and just killing somebody almost every turn is really powerful. And then she could anyway, so that's what she was doing against the Tau too. So a great model certainly has abilities to be taken out. I mean, I had to be very careful with her in that Astra Militarum game. She was playing plasma spam. So, I mean, she had to hide behind a wall and kind of go to a far corner. And, I mean, there would have been counters to that, but he did not employ them, as it turned out. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on the Asuryani. I think that you're certainly going to see a lot of the Exarchs. I mean, I don't know that I'd say that they're like crazy values, because I mean they are very killable, but they are pretty good values for sure, and they do something that you don't already do, and that's nice.
So one thing that you didn't seem to rate there, which I really like, with all of the factions that can do it, at least to have as an option. I think I know why you haven't rated it, but the potential to drop 3 Scorpions.
Right.
Not
Well, deep striking
not
is good for shooting, in my opinion, right? Because you get to deep strike and then still shoot. And deep striking so that you can then maybe charge the next round is not quite as attractive. I mean, they might move out of the way. I mean, there's things that can happen, right? Or they might tie you up with, you're close to them, they're close to you, right? It goes both ways. And the Scorpions don't have a lot of offensive firepower, right? I mean, they're getting 1 grenade, that's okay, but they cost 12 points each, so they're kind of pricey, and they're not that much better than a Storm Guardian. I mean, they've got I mean, they are better, but they're not necessarily better in the way you need them to be. So on an open map, maybe, but you can't do that in arena, and then you have to have 3 Scorpions on your roster. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan. Not a huge fan.
No,
To get
okay,
2 positions in the
fair
game.
enough.
Yeah,
Good to know.
but
Good to know.
people talk about it, and then I noticed that the Ranger actually can move in a little bit different way. He does like a deployment. Actually, he doesn't deep strike. And I just noticed that for the first time the other day. But he's still a Ranger, and they're really overpriced for what they do.
Yeah, I think not many people like snipers.
Yeah, in general.
The
Yeah,
only
they're not good.
time I have liked a sniper is with the Astartes Eliminators. Their
Yeah,
execution around, you take salamanders, so you're basically guaranteed a hit and a wound, but you're using your rerolls to get that because it's still only a strength 4. Although interestingly, I believe in the Codex in 40k, that gun is now a strength 5.
wouldn't surprise me. They are going to buff those units until Space Marines
Until
start
you
to
buy them. Yeah. Okay. No, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, really interesting thoughts. Obviously, it's really good to hear from someone that is the best, according to BCP and everybody that I talk to, player in Kill Team. Um, do you have anything else that you really wanted to say or chat about?
Well, I wouldn't mind hearing, some of your thoughts about Nova, which is coming up, and what's going to happen there. There's been a lot of demon hype, especially in the last couple days on the channel. I'm not sure I'm a believer in the demon hype. I saw George's list. I do believe that it's a good demon list. I think it's the right approach, but I think that it is going to struggle against players who understand what it does and how it plays. But do you have any thoughts or predictions for who's going to win at Nova?
Okay, so for anyone unaware, Nova is 100 and it's 100 points, and there's a
Right.
minor FAQ they've given that does modify some of the rules. Currently, the kind of Birinid, I think, was the first one that suggested it to me, and it sounds incredibly logical. We know that the 2 leaders, or leaders sounds a bit cultish, the 2 supervisors or organizers of Nova are also 2 of like the head play testers for Kill Team, and so we know they have inside knowledge of some description, and we can assume, and I think it's a pretty safe assumption, that the FAQ that they are putting out is probably going to make its way to the rest of us officially later down the line. I would hope later this year, pure speculation, I'm going to guess we are going to get an official FAQ the same time we did last year, which happened after Nova and then after the Warhammer World tournament that it ran there. So we should be getting one November, I guess.
Look at the nuggets of wisdom I am pulling from you.
I'm talking a lot, I guess. So there are minor things, as we already discussed. Death Denied going to 3CP seems pretty big. A lot of people kind of questioning why, but
especially just with, I mean, they're doing so much for Astartes in the big game. It's strange that they have a different mentality.
And as everybody has said, if Adeptus Astartes were dominating the scene, then it'd be like, yeah, okay, I get it.
Right.
They're doing a balance patch. I'm all for balance patches. I'm not seeing much Adeptus Astartes domination in Kill Team. They're a solid faction. I think Elites gave them a lot of really cool options. They are now more customizable than Deathwatch, which is kind of weird, but they're not, they're not killing everybody. Although, obviously, I didn't know that you have effectively just said they can handle everybody apart from Tau. So,
I hadn't tested everybody, but,
Oh, okay.
Plasma spam was going to be a challenge too. I hadn't got there
yet. Who, sorry?
Plasma spam, either AdMech or AM were probably going to be a challenge too.
Yeah.
Didn't make it that
far. So who do I think is going to win Nova? Demons. So obviously Demons. I haven't played against them. Right. So I can't truly say, but I am scared about the Pink Horrors.
Right? Yeah, sure.
So the Pink Horror splits without an injury roll. It splits into 2 blue horrors, and each blue horror becomes 1 brimstone, pair of brimstones. So you have to kill 1 model 5 times. I think for some factions, that is as close to a hard counter as you can get. That's going to be really difficult for elite factions. So,
right, I was going to, ironically, Grey Knights.
Yeah,
right?
So that's the thing. Grey Knights, who are the demon killers.
In the face right there.
So firstly, Pink Horrors they are psychic, so they can try to deny your psychic phase.
Yeah, that's true.
That's huge for you, because that's how you kill things as a Grey Knight. Right. You also only have 5 guys tops, maybe less.
Right.
So okay, you can split shots, but you still just have a bolter. It's still just strength 4, 0 AP, 1 damage. Not that damage matters, because damage will kill the demon.
Yeah, and AP doesn't matter either. So
that is true.
They do have the right gun for it. They have the right gun.
True. That's true. Yeah. Obviously, the special ability from the Grey Knights, which allows them to do D3 mortal wounds against all demons, doesn't matter because they're all 1 wound.
Right.
So that's completely a useless ability.
That is against Plague Bears. No, it doesn't, because you don't get to roll injury rolls. I thought you would get to roll more injury dice, but you don't. Sorry.
No, it's still just 1 injury. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Tau, with their massed firepower of strength 5, are going to handle demons okay.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. And the number one key to facing demons, I mean, without having really tested it, but just watching the bat rep that George put up and thinking about them a little bit, I mean, you just have to be very conscious of when you shoot the Pink Horrors and of what's going to happen when you do. And if you plan for that, I think you can, there's going to be times when they make a mistake and get them too close together, and you can kill them so they can't drop their buddies. And there's going to be times when they are too cagey with them, and you can just kill other things on their force. And then by the time the pinks come up, you can kill them at leisure, and then they'll be rolling a lot of break tests. They can't handle morale at all, and you only need to kill or injure. Probably 6 things, because the demon list is probably not more than 10. But you have to be very careful about how you get there, because if you just start out shooting some Pink Horrors and then they make blues. Even if you kill 3 of them the first round, they're probably going to tie you up to prevent you from getting to 6, or at least getting to 6 until it's too late. Because I mean, they still might make their. It's not like they always fail break tests. They have a 7 or less.
Yeah, yeah. I think as you alluded to there, the other thing that might be able to handle demons quite nicely are melee hordes. Because if you
Yeah,
can get a genuine, I haven't measured out how many models you would need, but I'm sure you could you could surround a model so that it wouldn't be able to split with 4
right.
models. So, Hormigant spam
Well, I mean, I think you can. Yeah, I mean, certainly with 3, and and then
with
I mean,
3.
in arena, right? I mean, it's
Oh, in
what you
arena,
said.
you might be able to do it with 2, I'm sure. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
thinking
right.
open board. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and then they come up too, and then the other. I mean, that's right. I mean, they've got their own models getting in the way.
Yeah, no, indeed, indeed. So I think in real world application, pink horrors are less scary than they might seem initially on paper.
Yeah,
Um, I don't think demons are going to take it because I don't think there are going to be that many demons, if I'm honest. And so we're not going to get, a few bad dice rolls could take demons out of the tourney. Whereas
there's
we
that.
know a lot of people are going to be taking Tau. We know there's going to be a lot of Gene Stealers. I also think there's going to be a lot of Heretic Astartes.
Oh yeah. Well,
I
there's. I think Matthew Hole. I've heard his name, eerily similar to my own. Is a big Heretic Astartes player, and he will be there, and he did very well last year.
Well, I mean, Heretic Astartes are. So was he the guy that took the cultist spam last year?
I believe he is. I believe he is,
Oh,
and I've
okay,
heard that he's
okay.
modified the list to bring a couple berserkers in it.
Why wouldn't you?
Uh, Heard some words that he did well, and I noticed him moving up on some of the rankings. So he's going to tournaments that are getting counted. So he's out there. He's
Yes.
out there.
So,
Kind of, an unknown to our Discord, right?
well, shame on him. Um,
Right.
yeah, no, I think Heretic Astartes are now a very strong team. They've got the numbers with the dirt cheap models,
Right.
and the Berserker champions can do some real work. And they do still, I know people don't talk about it, but they do still have options when it comes to their shooting guys. They're not great
Right.
options, but you do have them. If you know you're going against Horde, you can take a heavy bolter. You can take a plasma.
Sure.
I think you can take a combi melter. Not sure, but you have options.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that for sure. I think, and they're a neat. They've always been a neat faction too. So, and then Eric won Toss Your Capers with Thousand Suns. That was 125 points though, so that's a different
Yeah, that's a
thought.
different ballpark with Thousand Suns
Yeah.
there. Yeah, at 100.
I would expect that Eric will be bringing Tau to Nova. That's my
Okay,
expectation, and he would probably, if I had to pick a player to win, I'd say him.
he's
We'll
high
see.
up there with the Tau. Yeah, no. I mean, as you say, Tau, they have tools for everything. They're not scared of the demons. They can handle hordes. They can handle elites.
Right.
But I'm
I
not
think they're
gonna.
both there. Yeah.
Pardon?
It isn't Eric. Is Eric Utzical going to Nova? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Just
I don't know if he is or
maybe
not.
he's not.
I don't
But
know.
if so, there's 2 Erics bringing Tau.
Yeah, so we can
How can you
almost
be
start guessing on the name of the player
right?
that's going to win,
Right.
not just the faction. Yeah,
Right.
but
But
I
that'd
don't
be
want to officially guess Tau are going to win because it almost seems too obvious now.
yes, sure.
So I'm gonna throw a curveball at my official guess for the winner of Nova. I'm gonna guess Deathwatch.
Deathwatch. Do you know any players who play Deathwatch?
No, there's
Beard
64
is
people.
bringing
Somebody
demons.
must be taking Deathwatch.
Well, I hear you. I hear you. From my perspective, I'm thinking about player first, or at least equal with faction. So I would need to be aware of a good Deathwatch. If Biren had said he was going there to watch, then I might say okay. But I think if Biren was going, and I'm not sure he is, I think he'd play demons.
Yes, I know he's excited about demons at the moment. Um, I th- I th- I don't know. I think the last thing he said was that he was thinking of bringing demons to SoCal. But
Right.
yes, he was thinking of taking Space Wolves. Then I think he was hyped on demons, but I can't remember. I'm not sure.
Sure.
And
Sure.
we've still
Sure.
got 2 months. So,
But you're saying Death Watch by unknown pilot is your.
well, well, the thing is, okay, Death Watch are inherently and obviously a strong faction before elites. Okay, at 100 points, 4 frag cannons or 3 frag cannons and an Infernus heavy bolter and a guy with a storm shield is really good to the point that you can be okay with bad rolls. Like
Well, I don't think
with
you can
your
take four
offensive
frag
power.
cannons in a. If you take 4 frag cannons, the fifth guy has to be a leader, and he's got more limited options. I think.
No, yeah, you can't actually fit that. It would be 3 frag cannons or 2 frag cannons, an Infernus heavy bolter, and then whatever your leader takes.
Right. Right.
But you have a roster. Um, I think their offensive power is good enough that they can pretty much that they aren't hampered so much by poor rolls. Everyone is hampered by poor rolls, but those 2d6 damage or sorry attacks doesn't matter if I mean, how often do you roll double ones? Anyway,
One time in 36, probably a couple
well,
times in a tournament.
I mean, sure, if you want to actually use numbers.
Right. No, I for that reason, I'm not a big fan of plasma in tournament settings because I think you're gonna lose a guy. I mean, if we're talking about Astromilitarum, it's one thing, but if you're talking about Astartes,
Yes.
your odds that you lose a guy in one of your 6 games is pretty good, and it's not clear if that's going to be a defining time. You don't have guys to lose, so I like a grav gun instead of that for that reason.
I think the grav gun is very, very competitively priced.
Yeah,
It's even actually I was thinking the grav pistol, 1 point,
yeah, grav pistol's
still
nice,
strength
nice.
5. On a fellow Astartes, it'd be D3 damage. Great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I did. I had a jetpack guy with 2 grav pistols. One of the
Oh,
guys on
you
my list.
went 2 grav pistols instead of grav pistol relic blade?
Well, I mean, I've got a different relic blade guy, and he doesn't have a jump pack. I don't like the jump pack with the relic blade because you don't want to move right up to the round, and the jump pack
That is
doesn't
true.
let you charge any further. So
I do think it's weird that you don't get more of a bonus, or you don't get a bonus to your charge when you have a jump pack. I think that's seriously
yeah,
limiting. And so from that perspective,
but that's and I almost feel like people just aren't thinking about that. They're like thinking Warhammer rules because, like, I mean, why are you stacking 6 more points onto an expensive model when apparently your plan is to jump him out there and hope he doesn't die? And I
stand
mean,
there for a
with
turn.
Death
Yeah.
Denied, you do have. I mean, it's not like your odds are insignificant, but still, I think save those points. The Relic Blade. I had a Relic Blade guy and then a Relic Blade and a Storm Shield guy, depending on the list. But that hey, that's a whole other subject. What did I bring in my Astartes?
Indeed.
My table Astartes roster. What did it include?
So obviously you think Tau are going to win, right?
If Eric wasn't bringing Tau, if I didn't know a player who was bringing Tau, then I wouldn't say that because I think we know George is. And I'm pretty confident that George knows his way around the game, and I know. Well, I mean, I believe that Matthew Hole will bring cultists, and I know he's a good player, and I think Elliot's going to be at Nova, right?
I have tried to get hold of Elliot, but I cannot, so I don't know.
He's fallen off the face of the earth. Everybody's had that same experience with him.
Yeah.
But the last thing we heard him say was orcs, and if he brings an orc list none of us have thought of, then that would, So, but I happen to know. Well, I mean, I happen to believe, without having any inside knowledge, that Eric will be bringing Tau. And I know that Miguel's not going. Miguel was planning to go to Nova, but had some stuff happen, and he had to cancel that trip. So, if he was going, I'd probably bet on him, just because we'd be practicing together, and I'd be sort of seeing what he was doing. We'd be thinking about the other lists that we thought were going to be there. But and I would have known, I would have been playing Tau against him, and so I would understand whether or not that matchup was beatable. But without that, the person I'm guessing is Eric with the Tau in DC or wherever they do Nova.
Okay.
Northern.
Okay.
Right,
You know, obviously I said Deathwatch because that was like such a niche idea. I don't really think they're going to win it.
Sure.
But Heretic Astartes, I think if I had to put an actual guess,
Right.
I'm gonna go with them.
Okay. I think
Unfortunately,
that's
don't know if anyone's actually taking them to Nova, but
well, like I
if
said,
they
I think we
are,
have one notable player who probably is.
yeah,
So that that's because it is. I mean, at this point, back in the old days before I played competitively, when people would say, "Oh, it's the list, not the player," I was persuaded maybe that was the case. But now that I've been playing for a while, I do not believe that anymore. I've
no,
seen too
sure,
many.
sure,
Yeah, it's too many good lists played by bad people that go nowhere. So
yes,
um,
yeah. Net
there you go.
dething
Okay, so good. We've got
isn't
our predictions are in.
definitely, definitely.
Another potential
What is
title.
your prediction for SoCal yourself?
Well, I mean, I'm sure going to do my darndest Asuryani on the arena day, and we'll see. I think that Utsukal Eric with his I will be bringing Tau will be a big challenge. And honestly, a lot of the guys I've played,
Oh, we lost
the
you for a
Harlequin
moment there. What
player.
did you say, sorry?
I said, the Harlequin player. I can't remember his real name off the top of my head, but Zero Stride is he's testing a lot. I know that Birnit is testing a lot. So there's going to be some good players there. But yeah, I'm hoping I can do well with Asuryani. If I bring Tau on the arena day or on the open, that'll definitely be a factor. So I think like I said, I think Tau is going to be the faction to beat at SoCal for sure with that 125 points, unless we have some changes before then.
Okay, very interesting. Now, obviously for SoCal Open, I am there narrating the whole thing.
We're going to be roommates.
I believe we are. I believe we are. And that excites me because that means I can bug you to play an actual game of Kill Team.
We can play Kill. Oh my god! Yeah, I'm sure.
So
Wow.
I figure if I can beat you somehow, I just need to beat once, and also track down Birinid for the night before and beat him. I will be the de facto champion of Kill Team, and I will never play again.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
I mean, that's a good call. But what do you want me to play when you defeat me?
Well,
I mean,
has to be Asuryani, doesn't it?
Oh, okay. No, yeah, if you're gonna beat me playing Asuryani,
Oh
sure.
yeah.
Like,
Oh, bring your A
yeah,
game. I'm going to.
right.
Yeah, definitely,
I mean,
definitely.
yeah, no, you certainly deserve. I mean, obviously, I mean it's the number one in the ITC right now is the me Asuryani. So if
The
you beat
number
that,
one US player versus the number one UK player.
I mean, that being said, I mean, I hope to win. I hope to do well, but I don't know if I can beat everybody at SoCal. I think that
of course.
whatever advantage I had in kind of thinking about the game, I think it has eroded by this point. I think there's a lot of people putting in the practice, putting in the games, putting in the thought. So I think that that I probably had an edge on people in my thinking about the game at LVO, but I don't think I have that edge anymore. So it's going to be a trickier game.
Yeah, no, certainly. I would argue possibly. I'm not detracting from you at all, of course. But back then, potentially, people just hadn't played against Asuryani. I mean, the game hadn't been out for that long, really, had it? Like,
right. Well, I mean,
months?
I think just sort of a board control style of play, and thinking about the mission. But people were thinking, oh, Harlequins are good. I'm going to bring Harlequins. I'm going to win a lot of games. But they weren't thinking, how am I going to beat every faction that I might, you know what I mean? They hadn't done the same kind of testing and stuff. I mean, some people had. I mean, I caught Eric on a bad game playing his Drukhari. That was that could have gone different. But and obviously Miguel was different too. He'd done the testing. But most of the other people I played hadn't thought about the game the same way I had at the time.
Yeah. No, it would be very, very interesting. Yeah. Are you going to any other tournaments that you're aware of at the moment?
I'm not. I was
Okay.
supposed to be going to a military thing right at the time of Nova, and although I changed units and I don't have to go to that anymore, that's out. And so and I got kids and stuff. So SoCal, that's the next target, and then maybe I'll get another tournament in between SoCal and LVO. I don't know what'll be available, but that's possible. But I don't have a lot to gain from 8-man tournaments from a rankings perspective, because I've already got, like I've got a 12-man, a 10-man, and an 8 finish, so I can only get more points by going to bigger tournaments.
Dare I ask this question?
Yes.
Would you not go to a tournament just for fun?
Well, I would, but you have to understand that normally I would never be able to find time to even go to 5 or 6 tournaments as I am this year. And so in my life, I don't get to do as much for fun as you might think.
So you're selling it to the wife as I am the best in the world. Yeah.
Well, that's right. I mean, she doesn't. You know what? She is not as impressed with that as you might think.
Well, that's weird.
It's funny. Yeah, exactly. She is not as impressed. But I sort of said it at the beginning, and I said, hey, baby, I was saying it was cool and all, and I really want to go to 5 tournaments or so this year so that I have a chance to compete, and these are when they are, and that's kind of how this got presented. But yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, I would probably go into all kinds of tournaments for fun, and I'd be bringing different factions, and I'd be experimenting and stuff. But as it is this year, my
Reality.
goal,
Yeah.
right? This is probably the 1 year I'll be doing this. My goal is to go to the tournaments that I can and play the best I can to get the best possible ranking. And I know I thought I'd be doing this against myself on BCP, and nobody would know or care. It was just my personal objective. It turns out we've got the ITC. Somebody, if I win, might give me a trophy. Admittedly, it has not been the fairest season. Big tournaments have not been included. There might be other big tournaments that not everybody's had a fair shake. But that is not the point.
No, no. If you're the top, you're the top. Just because I've only played a single game or a single tournament and I'm the top, not my fault nobody else is using BCP.
Right. So, yeah, I did not expect that I would be, that Reese would be having so much fun with my name on the Frontline Gaming. I don't know if you ever watch his weekly update, but they really enjoy my name, Micahel T.
Oh, no, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, they have a lot of fun playing with it. They think it would be a good name for a wrestler, and they've got kind of a shtick envisioned for me, American style.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So
fair enough. The final question to wrap it all up.
Right.
Do you care about Warcry? Why not?
Oh, well, I mean, the only reason I don't care is I don't have time to conceivably begin playing another game. I mean, it looks super cool. It looks super cool, and it looks like, maybe next year. I mean, you know what I mean? I'm kind of doing this 1 year at a time, hobby-wise. So last year I made a 2,000-point team. Next year, I mean, the rules look innovative. I've only briefly looked at them. But I mean, Kill Team's not necessarily the best game in the world. I mean, I really like board games and stuff too, right? I just kind of got on this track for this 1 year. But yeah, maybe in the future. But I mean, right now, the idea of I'm going to buy another box and then I'm going to get another set of things to paint. I don't want to be like you with all the boxes in the background. I gotta learn.
It's bad. Yeah.
Right.
Very quickly, fair enough about not having the time. Have you looked into Shades Warhammer Underworlds at all? As you said, you like board games, and I would argue that Underworlds is much more board game like. There's hexes.
Before the Kill Team thing, I thought I would be playing some Shadespire this year because it already occurred to me that a shorter game might be more fun to play in tournaments in and just to practice. And I actually even somebody gave me a box of the guy I went to LVO with gave me a box of Shadespire stuff right there. So I thought I'd come home from that and then maybe get into some Shadespire. But Kill Team happened, So I picked my horse and I'm sticking with it at least for this run, and then we'll see. I mean, if the community continues to grow, I'm probably going to stick with the community because that's how things get bigger, right? but I'm going to leave that decision until LVO. But yeah, Shadespire, Warcry, both neat-looking games that might be worth considering too.
Fair enough. Fair enough. In that case, do you have anything you would like to plug, either your own social media or other people, their content, etc.? Feel free to mention anyone. Oh, that's almost like
Well,
a challenge.
I mean,
No
obviously,
pressure.
great respect and great gratitude to Kill Team Stream and Kill Team Academy for all the work they've been putting in this year to build this community. And obviously to George, who was doing it even before then. And George, get your stuff on ITC. Beernid, get your stuff on ITC. I'm not seeing Beernid's stuff on ITC. I understand he's running a tournament like every couple of weeks. Let's make this a real thing and grow the Kill Team community.
Okay, well there you go. You have it from the best Kill Team player in the USA right there. That's fine. That's fine. Time's fluid. It's fine. There you go. Everybody get on BCP. Get your tournaments in, because the more people on there, the more stats we have. And damn it, stats are fun to look at. Maybe I'll make a bar graph out of something. I don't know.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. This has been Micahel T. Holy. Do you want to say goodbye?
Take care.
There you go. And obviously Glass Half Dead. And I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope you've all had a good day and continue to have a good day. This is Glass Half Dead saying goodbye.